So let's start again on with regard to Maga Civil War. This has been going on, although it's quieting down today. Like Elon Musk is kind of taking himself out of it. Vivek has been silent for a while. They've taken themselves out of this. I think they got instructions from the boss to quieten this down. Trump came down with his views on this, and MAGA is still upset and still talking about it, but it certainly is not getting the kind of volume that it did a little while, as of even yesterday. But this all started a few days ago. I just saw a tweet by Elon Musk that I thought was kind of funny. So Elon, just a few minutes ago. No, not that. What the hell? Let's see. Here it is. 56 minutes ago, he says, please post a bit more positive, beautiful, or informative content on this platform. So, people have been complaining forever about the negativity and the fighting and the, bad kind of negative vibe on Twitter forever. But Elon Musk has finally noticed, because he was in the middle of it. He was being attacked viciously by MAGAs, and now it's like, yeah, maybe we should try to be more positive. Maybe we should be a little nice, informative, and more beautiful stuff. That was his post 56 minutes ago. So that is Elon Musk's, I think, conclusion from the whole thing. All right, everything started a few days ago when Donald Trump appointed Sriram Krishnan as a advisor for AI, serving under the AI czar, whose name just escaped me, but serving under the AI czar, Sriram Krishnan. Laura Luna, I think, was maybe the first, but there were a number of MAGA comments that came out saying, more, we don't need these Indians. Why are we bringing these foreigners into the administration? We were supposed to be an America First administration. And what's going on here? MAGA's being played. Vivek and Elon are bringing in these foreigners, and they're getting these senior positions in the Trump administration. Something's very wrong here, unacceptable. We need to do something about it. And MAGA just jumped on the whole thing as part of this. Elon Musk, later said stuff about, we actually need more people like Krishnan. We need more people like Krishnan. We need more H-1Bs. We need more people to come here from these countries. And then all hell broke loose. Basically, the racists and the zero-sum world, DEI for Americans, the whole thing just exploded. And MAGA just freaked out, completely flipped out on Elon Musk and the whole thing. Then Vivek responded with a long post about American culture. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then he was attacked, and it went, and then it just got, other tech guys came in trying to defend the H-1B system or trying to recalibrate the discussion about H-1B. But the MAGA people were like either making racist comments or zero-sum kind of Marxist comments about employment, about wages, about the damage immigrants do. And again, this has been going on. It's still going on in certain parts of Twitter, but this dominated Twitter for a while. But as I said, it started with Sriram Krishnan. And if you've ever seen a photo of Sriram Krishnan, he's not a pretty guy. I mean, he is, and I don't think this is because this has nothing to do with his ethnic background or where he comes from. He's just not got a pretty face. He's got a pretty ugly face. And immediately pictures went up on Twitter. People saying, we don't want people like this in this country. And of course they were making a strong racist claim, and it went all over the place. And it's interesting to note who this guy is. I mean, it's a fascinating. His story is a fascinating greatness of America story. I mean, we talked about Horatio Alger. We talked about Horatio Alger, I think, yesterday. Adam recommended everybody read Horatio Alger. Well, here is Horatio. This is a Horatio Alger story. Sriram Krishnan was born in Chennai, India, to a relatively or quite poor family. Family couldn't afford a computer until he was 17. When he got one, it was because his father was willing to spend what was equivalent to a year's worth of salary in order to buy him one. So when he was 17, he basically taught himself to code and started coding for himself and creating products and creating stuff online. And he wrote about this in one of his blog posts where he wrote about some of the stuff he was developing online, caught the eye of a Microsoft executive who was visiting India. And Sriram was invited to come and demo his work. He's flown out to a conference in India, first time in a hotel, first time in a plane, and he presented, and Microsoft hired him on the spot. Hired him on the spot in India. A few years later, he was moved to Seattle, where he worked. He worked on a team that put together, that basically created Azure, which is the the cloud computing. I think it's the cloud computing of Microsoft, a business worth hundreds of billions of dollars, right? So he worked at Microsoft for several years. Again, cloud computing, and was considered one of the really rising stars. He worked, directly under a guy named Dave Cutler, who's a tech legend and who basically built Windows NT. So Azure is AWS, which is AWS is the Amazon version, right? So after working in Seattle for Microsoft, he left and moved to Silicon Valley. At Silicon Valley, he worked at Facebook, where he scaled global ad systems under Sheryl Sandberg and Mark Zuckerberg. He then went to work at Twitter, where he worked directly for Jack Dorsey. He worked at Snap. So here's a guy who has worked at many of the major, certainly social media companies, but all kinds of tech, all kinds of areas where he has excelled. In every one of those jobs, he excelled. He's brought in to do like a special mission, special project, and then he leaves and goes to the next challenge. Finally, during COVID, I think he left these companies and became a general partner, not just a junior partner, a general partner at Andreessen Horowitz, A16Z, one of the top, most influential venture capital firms in Silicon Valley, where he basically works with founders to help build the next wave of tech, the next generation of great innovation and great products. At some point here, I don't know what year it was, he was actually tapped by Andreessen Horowitz to move to London to start their European operations. And I guess about a month ago, before he was tapped by Trump to come into the administration, he basically announced that he was leaving Andreessen Horowitz not clear what he was going to do. But then Mark Andreessen obviously has some input into the transition team at Trump on the tech side, and he probably is the guy who gave a good word, and they hired him. So here's a guy who came from India, and he didn't come on an H-1B. He came on some other visa, which is a relocation visa from Microsoft relocating somebody from a foreign country to locally. Very hard to get those visas. He has created massive amounts of value. Went through the process of getting a green card, became a naturalized citizen of the United States along the way. I don't know exactly what year he became a naturalized citizen. And has been incredibly productive, creating real value. I don't know that you can measure how many jobs he's created, how much dollars he's created, but enormous, right? And he's being tapped to advise on AI. Now, I am skeptical about the government having a czar for crypto and AI and what that means. And I worry about the fact that I think these Silicon Valley guys who are involved with the Trump administration think that they don't object to central planning. They just think they could do the central planning better. And I worry about government having AI and crypto policies and what that means. Let the market rip and let's see where AI and crypto lead us. I worry also about, I think there are all kinds of misaligned incentives by having these tech guys heavily involved in government, but overall, they're probably more rational voices than the other people surrounding Trump to go for it. But here's a guy, he's a massive success and brilliant, value creator, wealth creator, jobs creator. And what does Maga care about? That he's not American. He's not white. He kind of looks ugly. He doesn't look like them. I mean, and they will complain that he's taking an American's job, but it's unlikely. It's unlikely, given how smart this guy really is. Other smart Americans, as smart as he is, all have jobs. All have jobs equivalent to his. So, that's how it started. With an American success story. With an Horatio Alger success story. And the people who supposedly want to save America, make America great again, which to me means more Horatio Alger stories, are the ones complaining about him. Complaining about what's he doing in America? Why is he so successful in America? And why would Trump put such a person in such a position? So, as I said, all hell broke loose. MAGA went all out, crazy racist and crazy zero-sum kind of Marxist. And I think those are the two groups that basically, were in this, right? The two groups that basically were represented here is the people who argued that bringing in H-1B visas destroys American jobs. They outcompete Americans, or they lower wages, although this is, Sriram's is a good example where that is clearly not the case. Or they're just outright DEI racist. We need quotas for white people. We need to make sure white Americans who go to school have good paying jobs. So just the flip side of DEI, the mirror image of DEI, just from the perspective of, white Americans. And it's not just white Americans. I also saw comments of, like, Steve Bannon says something like, we shouldn't allow any immigrants into the United States until, no more H-1Bs until Silicon Valley is 20% black and 20% Hispanic. He is appealing now to blacks and Hispanics because they voted for Trump, so we got to appeal to them, right? So he's he's expanding beyond whites, but you have to be American, whatever American means. And we have to have quotas, and we have to have standards. I mean, what is the difference again? Remind me of the difference between Maga and the woke left. There's a reason why over the last 2-3 months, the idea pushed by James Lindsay and what's his name in the UK, Kissin, these guys are pitching the concept of woke right, because they seem to advocate for the same things, just with a different spin on them. It's like flip images. And it's what I told you would happen. Remember I told you what would happen? I said the more the left goes wacky, the more they go identitarian, the more the right will go, oh, you want to play that identitarian game? We can do that, and we're bigger than you. Oh, that's exactly what's happened. Exactly what happened. All right, so then Vivek stepped in, and he said, look, basically, he said, we need immigrants because they're just better than local Americans. And this, of course, really flipped people out. Here's what he writes, and so this is his statement on Twitter. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over native, in quotation marks, Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation, he says. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. And now he goes to a whole, critique of American culture. Quote, our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college. It starts young. Now, people are flipping out over all this. Now, isn't this like the typical conservative critique of America? Isn't this like standard pretty much on it used to be on, quote, the right, what used to be the right, critiquing American education, critiquing American culture? Can't take it from Vivek, though. He continues, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. A culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech in Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. Now, I don't know any of those characters. I didn't watch any of those shows, so you'll have to forgive me for that one. He then puts in parentheses, fact, I know multiple set of immigrant parents in the 90s who actually limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. More movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. Now, let's just put that aside for a second. I want to say something about Whiplash because this one became a whole stream of criticism saying, Vivek, you didn't understand Whiplash, which was unbelievably revealing. All these people think that Whiplash was about the dangers of, pushing, of over-pushing, of insisting on perfection, of insisting on more and more and more practice, on more and more and more to gain excellent and brilliant, that it was a critique of that. Now, that tells you a lot about their philosophy. That tells you a lot about how they think about the world. That tells you a lot about their veneration of mediocrity, that they took Whiplash as a movie that encourages mediocrity, that discourages what actually happened there, which was a teacher pushing a student maybe brutally, maybe overly brutally, but pushing a student to becoming brilliant and excellent at what he does, a drummer in this case. And the proof that that's what the movie in the end is about is the ending of the movie, where the student finally, partially out of anger, but partially because of all the practice and the pushing and the expectations and the demands, finally lives up to his potential, performs brilliantly. This is a movie about excellence, about pushing for excellence, striving for excellence, and the effort, the struggle, the pain. No pain, no gain. That is required in order to achieve that excellence. And the very fact that so many people commenting on this didn't get the point of the movie is stunning and says a lot about American culture. The fact that they will find mediocrity even where, or a rejection of excellence, even where it's so explicitly, unequivocally presented. Of course, the abuse worked. He can't find his way to excellence without the abuse. It's the abuse that got him to the point where he can find that excellence. And it's only when confronted with the anger with his teacher that he can manifest that greatness. I mean, you could argue that that's not a good theme, and that's fine, but that's the theme. Without the abuse, he's never this good. He's practiced enough. All that practice is now, internalized, and he's put in a position where he basically unleashes through anger everything that he's practiced, everything that he's learned, all that this teacher has tried to drill into him, including that abuse, and now it manifests itself in his performance. He can't do that without all the practice that he's gone through, and without the demand for perfection, the demand for excellence. He doesn't achieve any of that. It's not that it was all there, and his teacher prevents it from coming through because of the abuse. No, the teacher, drives him, and it's only after that drive is completely internalized into him. It's only when he comes to terms with that, and then only when he now faces, humiliation and real anger, that it comes forward. Anyway, more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. I never watched Friends. More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. You should see how many posts there are defending sleepovers. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less television, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. By the way, again, most of this used to be standard conservative critique of the culture. He continues, most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grew up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s, for even now, who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. Why he has to go collectivistic there, and as if this, the competition with China is what should drive us. Shouldn't what drives us is value creation? This can be our Sputnik moment, he goes on. We've awakened from slumber before and can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing for or legislating alternative hiring practices onto existence. I'm confident we can do it. Now, there's a bunch of things that are wrong and bad about this quote, and so on. But it's, there's nothing wrong with jocks and prom queens. The problem is we don't have any respect for math Olympiad champions or valedictorians. We don't as a culture. And there's a lot wrong with our TV shows. They do wallow in mediocrity. They do wallow in cynicism and skepticism. And our culture is filled with average mediocrity. And the response to Vivek is just pathetic. It just basically confirmed how awful. This has become. So, Cat Turd, the representative of Maga, do I need to start listing American inventors that the world wouldn't have without us, against the world wouldn't have without us? Now, Vivek has a lame response to that, but I saw one good response where they actually list all those inventors, and a big, significant proportion of them are immigrants. It's just a reality. I mean, part of what made America great, part of what made America as productive in its culture, ambitious and striving, was its openness to immigrants. Another guy, Woodstock generation managed to build out aerospace. The one before went to the moon. America's doing great. Underlying your post is that we are all living in a squalor until being rescued by H-1B. Then why did anybody want to come here? I mean, where do you even start with this? The Woodstock generation built out aerospace? Was it the people at Woodstock? That generation, but maybe it was the more serious kids who were studying. And how many of, again, those people involved in the aerospace industry, how many of the people involved in NASA and taking us to the moon, how many people involved in rockets and that industry generally in the United States were immigrants? A huge proportion of them. And it just goes on and on and on and on in terms of, attacking. David Brooks, right, says, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. This line from Ramaswamy is pure ignorance. You want to have your kids do something cognitively demanding? Send them to sleepover with a bunch of other 12-year-olds. I mean, what is the point? Right? So the attacks on him were unbelievable, and Elon then jumped in as well, and he came in defending H-1Bs, and then it really got ugly, and then everybody starting attacking Elon, accusing him of being an immigrant, of course, and then Elon got angry, and he says, the reason I'm in America along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and fuck yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. So Elon uses the F word on Twitter to tell MAGA to go fuck themselves. That imploded, right? Just imploded. Elon, how are we supposed to trust you with defense contracts when you publicly threaten millions of Americans? This is way scary, dude. And yeah, and then it goes on, and let's see. Then so they attack him. So then Elon takes a bunch of stuff. He goes off and he takes off their verification, takes off their blue stickers, their gold stars, whatever it is. They're not allowed to monetize on the platform. Laura Luna he takes away her status. All these things just get trashed, right? Of course, all of this is the people on the anti-H1B side. Luna and Bannon, of course, but also, funnily enough, Nikki Haley comes out on the Maga side against H1Bs. Of course, J.D. Vance is famous for having said, quote, "We're done importing foreign labor. We're going to fight for American citizens and their good jobs and their good wages." Sounds just like a leftist to me. Old style kind of Marxist leftist. So that all, the attacks and all of this happened. But what was the defense? And this is, I think, going to be this is crucial. What was the defense that Elon Musk and the others basically mounted? They basically said, look, the United States is not producing enough high quality engineers. Therefore, we need to bring in engineers from other countries. In other words, a completely pragmatic, utilitarian argument about the benefits. Elon Musk then came out and said, look, and almost apologetically said, look, I'm only talking about the 0.1%, the really talented, the really freaky, smart people like Sriram Krishnan. I'm not talking about just average engineers. No, those should all go to Americans, obviously. So he immediately capitulated. We want the Albert Einsteins of the world. We don't just want good engineers. And we need immigrants because American culture is bad right now. That would be Vivek's argument. We need immigrants because we are competing with China, and China will eat our lunch if we don't get immigrants. We need immigrants because we only want the top 0.1%. 0.1%, not the top 1%. 0.1%. They even got allies. Alex Jones came out in support of the pro-H1B people because it was so unprincipled. So what happened is that, Elon, the whole argument, all the supporters, almost all the supporters, all based it on completely pragmatic grounds, completely utilitarian grounds, and then caved and said, oh no, we're only talking about the top, the very top. Now this, of course, is weak and suggests that they can't win. As a consequence, I think, of that, and Trump came out supporting Musk. He had a funny statement about, oh, in my properties, we hire lots of H1B people. Well, not the same H1B that they're talking about, not the tech guys. H1B, it's a different H1B program for hospitality industry. His wife, of course, Melania, came in on an H1B3, which is a special H1B for models. It just shows you the kind of central planning that's involved in the whole H1B process. They have H1Bs for this kind of talent and that kind of talent, and the kind of H2B. Yeah, his workers on H2Bs, not H1Bs. His wife was an H1B3 or H3B. Oh, I don't know. But here's the point: the government has all these different programs that are supposed to bring in different groups that are supposed to be special by some standard of being special. And then that's what Elon wants. He wants more of that, right? We should have a government committee that gets to decide who qualifies as the top 0.1%. who will be allowed in. So we need central planning to decide what professions, who's smart enough. I gave you the example in a previous show. I gave the example of the CEO of NVIDIA, who came in, one of the most successful companies in modern American history, who came in as a kid, whose parents came in, and none of them were in the top 0.1%. None of them. NVIDIA. Keep at me. It takes me a long time, but I do learn ultimately how to pronounce things. So Trump has come out in supporting of Elon. He basically, they're okay with identifying the top 0.1%. They want the government to be involved and responsible for all this. Only top talent will be allowed in. Elon also came out in the last couple of days saying, look, one way to guarantee only the very top talent is come in is have a very high minimum wage. Right now, I think the minimum wage for H-1B recipients is $60,000. Double that, make it 120, make it 300,000 or whatever. That way you guarantee that you're only bringing in the very top people, right? And make the person who gets the H-1B pay a fee every year while they have the H-1B. This is so bad. So here's the thing. Both sides, Maga and the Musk Vivek, are so bad about this. Other human beings are bad for you, unless they're in the top 0.1%, and we can fight China better with them. Now, I'll talk more about this tomorrow, but most of the Indians who are in the United States as immigrants who've done phenomenally well are not in tech. They're in they bought hotels and restaurants and all kinds of, small businesses. If you go into the poor areas in the United States, the entrepreneurs, the shop owners are often immigrants who've come here. Even if the population in those neighborhoods are not immigrants. Immigrants overwhelmingly entrepreneurial and in all kinds of fields. Do we only need tech? Do we emphasize tech because we're afraid of China? Should our immigration policy be based on being afraid of China? Even Elon and the others have a zero-sum mentality when it comes to 99.9% of humanity. Only the 0.1% actually add value to all of your lives. So what we have here is a bunch of xenophobic racists and Marxist zero-sum world advocates, MAGA, versus a bunch of pragmatic, selling out, unprincipled tech guys who won't stand for the principle of immigration. At some point, Elon Musk tweeted something like, anybody who wants to work for a living and embrace the American way of life or something else should be allowed in. And then he completely backtracked from that. And his discussion the last couple of days is completely backtracked to that. I think he needed to do that in order to regain his position within MAGA and regain Trump. So we've got tech pragmatists versus Marxist, what do you call it? You got tech pragmatists versus woke right versus woke left. Those are the choices left to you. Egalitarians of the left, or xenophobes of the right, with the tech guys trying to somehow survive with pragmatism. And it's sad. It's sad because what we need is a principled defense of, let's call it, productive immigration. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Right? Okay. So that's where we are in the Civil War. It seems like there's a truce right now. We haven't really seen the full the next battle from between Make America Healthy Again and the Ozempic wing of MAGA or the tech guys. There's going to be a whole bunch of battles within MAGA between the different factions. If you had to choose, you'd go with the tech guys. Suddenly, the tech guys are healthier than a bunch of losers in their mother's basement. Writing about how smart they are and they're not getting jobs because of H-1B. Allow me to be skeptical about that fact, about how smart they are and about how they're not getting jobs. Tomorrow we will talk about the immigration facts. We'll talk about the mythology, the fact, and we'll talk about solutions. H-1B is not a good system. It locks people up into one company. You get an H-1B, you can't leave that company. Unless you're sponsored for an H-1B by another company. It's very complicated. It's very cumbersome. It's based on a lottery system rather than a merit system. It's based on lottery. So H-1B needs to be reformed. It needs to be better. It needs to be done away with. But what should replace it? We'll talk about that tomorrow.